So you've done your founding member launch. Now you are looking to relaunch. What do? Well, there are really three things that we're going to unpack here today, and each of them are really important because what we want to do is we want to stack the momentum. Meaning you want to go from your founding member launch, where maybe you welcomed a small group of members into your membership, which is awesome. And then we want to build on that momentum so that your next launch just gets bigger and bigger and bigger each time that you do a promotion. Let's unpack this. Like, what are the first things that you're gonna do? Well, number one is you wanna refine your approach. And what I mean by that is the whole point of the founding member launch is to, yes, hopefully generate some revenue, but I actually think it's more powerful for you from the standpoint of being able to learn so that we can better position ourselves for a bigger launch. And what I mean by that, when we're talking about refining your approach, what we want to do is we want to look at like our messaging, our sales copy. We want to try to find alignment between what we're offering, our offer, and what the market actually wants. And we want to try to refine those things because your messaging can actually have a massive impact on the results that you end up getting with any launch. So we want to try to learn from that. A good example of this is Amina from our community. So she is a holistic medical practitioner over in India. And when they did their founding member launch, they ended up welcoming just over 35 members, and they generated over $9,000, by the way, with their founding member launch, which is pretty epic. But one of the things that I think that she did so well in that particular founding member launch was that when she would get questions, she would take those questions and she'd put them in a separate doc. Now, why is that powerful? Because then what she can do is she can go back through and analyze the language that her market is using when they're asking those questions. And so it enables her to, one, be able to preemptively respond and answer to questions the next time around. But two, she can look to see where she might be in alignment or out of alignment with the language that she's using when communicating with her audience. So it's a simple little trick, but it has huge dividends the next time that you go to launch your membership. So the more that you can learn from your founding member launch experience, the better. And what we want to do is we want to learn and we want to refine. And more often than not, that means refining your messaging, your offer, your sales copy, etc. Let's just say that we've gone through all that. What do we do next? Well, the second piece to having a great launch is you want to start building anticipation. Now, there are all kinds of ways to build anticipation, but the first and foremost is you got to get a date out on the calendar, right? Like, you got to have something for somebody to look forward to. You know, for example, let's just say there's a movie that's coming out in the movie theaters. They don't just all of a sudden just release it, right? Like, they build up all kinds of anticipation. I can tell you right now, my son, just the other day, put on Netflix and he's like, hey, Dad, let's watch this first version of this movie, because the second one has just been released. So he wants to like get all up to speed and, you know, remember all the, you know, characters and so forth in the storyline. And then we're gonna go and watch it in the theater. But they've released the date of that movie way in advance to build anticipation. The same is true for you. Like, when you're about to go into any launch, you gotta get a date out on the calendar and you gotta start telling everybody to mark it down. Like, you want that date circled on their calendar. Because oddly enough, once it's on the calendar, it's just like everything else in people's lives begins to, you know, filter around that particular date. But if they get other things on the calendar, then they're having to try to squeeze you in. You want to try to have the opposite effect. You want to be on the calendar and them trying to squeeze everything else around it. So most important is get a date on the calendar and set it way out in advance. And then as you're building up anticipation, you want to be talking about the success of people in your program. So that brings me to number three. The whole point of a founding member launch, in my opinion, is to actually equip you with your greatest marketing asset. And that is testimonials and case studies of people that you're working with who are implementing the very things that you're teaching inside of your membership. When you launch and do your founding member launch, you just want to double down on the members that have joined, and you just want to love on them, and you just want to help them and support them and help them experience as much progress as possible. and you actually want to track that progress. Like, where were they when they first joined your membership? And what are some of the things that they have begun to implement? And what is the kind of progress that they've made? And what has that made possible? For example, we just had somebody in our community who just did a record-breaking founding member launch. They ended up welcoming 8,000 people. 8,000 people, can you imagine? That is a life-changing number of new members, because instantly that person's gone from never having a business to, boom, having an entire membership business that is hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in revenue right from the very beginning. So I share this with you because when we talk about what is the transformation make possible, it's not just the result that people are getting. It's all the other things that that result will make possible, and you want to speak to that. So when you do your founding member launch, members join, and you start helping them inside your membership, you want to track their progress. Like, where are they when they first joined? Were they in the very beginning stages? Were they brand spanking new? Were they new to the topic that you're teaching? Or maybe they were a little bit further along, but they were stuck and they couldn't get beyond a certain point. And through your teaching and through what you're sharing in your membership, they've begun to experience progress. They've begun to really see the results that they had been seeking for so long. That's the kind of thing that you want to talk about, and you want to document that progress, and you want to document that story, because then that story becomes your greatest marketing asset. And we want stories that are going to feature people in all different walks of life. We want people who are in the very beginning stages. We want people who maybe are further along in their skill set. But each story is important, because every audience member who's watching and listening to those, they're going to relate to somebody who's at a different stage in that journey. So maybe it's, Sam, who's in the beginning stages of his journey. Well, they'll relate to Sam because maybe that's where they are. Or maybe it's, Sally, who's much further along. She's more advanced, but she was stuck and maybe had plateaued in her growth and her journey. Well, Sally's story is going to relate to somebody who's further along in their journey. But if you only focus on one type of story, then you're going to end up losing a big portion of your audience. So the goal is to document the stories and then to share those stories as you build up toward that new launch date. I can sit here all day long and tell you that, for example, our membership experience is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But the thing that's really going to move the needle is when I start sharing real stories of real people just like you, who have implemented the very thing that we have been teaching for the last 16 years and have got incredible results. Like, we were just chatting off camera right before we started here about how many people in our community have gone from like legit no audience, no business, like they weren't ever thinking about even starting a business, they were maybe just passionate about a particular topic, to launching a 6-figure, even 7-figure, even 8-figure business now. Like, what we teach is transformative in so many ways, and we literally have hundreds and even thousands of stories. We've collected those over the years, and every single one of those stories is so incredibly powerful because somebody in our audience is going to connect and relate to those. In fact, if you want to see a bunch of them, go to membershipstories.com. You'll see we've archived a whole bunch of those stories. But my point is, you will too. And it's going to start with your founding members. And it's going to start by tracking their progress, by getting details of who they are and where they are in their journey and what they're looking to get out of this, and then just doubling down and helping them get results. Like, you and I in the membership business, we're in the business of keeping people happy. And you know what keeps people happy? Is when they start experiencing progress. At the end of the day, as long as you and I are committed and focused on helping our people, then they're going to stay because they're going to be experiencing progress. And their progress is the key ingredient to our next launch. What I want you to remember is that when you are building up toward your next launch, you've got so many things that are in play, and you've learned so much from that founding member launch, which is awesome. Now it's about using that. You want to refine your approach, whether that's your messaging, your sales copy, or your emails, or your subject lines. Like, what worked last time? Do more of what works, less of what doesn't. You want to use the language that your audience is using and weave that in. That's going to help boost the performance of everything that you do in your next launch. Number two is you want to start building anticipation. Get the date on the calendar, start talking about it and building anticipation. And we're going to build excitement by talking about the things that you are changing, the things that you have learned in this process, and the results that people are getting. And that brings us to number three, is we want to leverage those case studies and testimonials. Remember, every story is important, from the person who is at the very beginning stages to the person who maybe is further along to different life circumstances. You want to share all the different types of stories, and you want to share the little wins as well as the big wins, because they all matter and they all lead to progress. And progress is what your audience is really after and the thing that they're really wanting to buy. So you do those things and you're going to have a fantastic next launch. And so if you like this, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, because we got a lot more details about how to continue launching a successful membership. We'll see you there.